Nicole, I have 6 o'clock. Are we ready?
All right, yep.
All right, welcome everyone for the East Lansing Transportation Commission meeting on Tuesday, October 27th.
Yep.
Go ahead with the roll call.
All right, and I just wanted to mention that with the new Open Meetings Act, you also need to say the place of where you are broadcasting from, city and state, please. John Boyce.
I'm here and attending in East Lansing, Michigan.
Julie Rajewski.
Here, East Lansing, Michigan.
Troy Fassbender.
Here. Do I have to say where I am also? Is
Yes.
that
Yes.
East Lansing, Michigan?
Thomas Bauman.
Here, East Lansing, Michigan.
Joel Litchie. Sorry.
Licky, yes, I'm here in East Lansing.
Joshua Cooper.
I am here. I am in East Lansing, Michigan.
Scott McCormick. Absent. Syed Hayder. Also absent. Okay,
All right.
completes the roll.
Next, we have approval of the agenda as written. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Second. All those in favor of approval of the agenda, say aye.
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 Okay.
Opposed, the same sign? Great. Thank you. We'll move on. Approval of the minutes from September 21st. As written, any changes?
Yeah, in the call to order, it indicates that I both moved and seconded the agenda, which
Oh,
somebody else had a role in that.
okay. We'll note that. So do we have a motion for approval of the minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes as amended.
I'll second.
Second. Do we have should I ask for discussion before we vote, or are we all set? For Robert's rules here. Let's, all right, for approval, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, the same sign? All right, great, approval. We'll move on to written communications. Do we have any, Nicole? Or,
Thomas had sent a written communication in regards to leaves in the bike lane. I don't know, in the bike lanes, Thomas, I don't know if you would like to discuss that at this point.
Yeah, we can do it now, or we can do it during commissioner concerns. It's either way is fine with me.
all right, why don't we bring that up under member concerns then?
That's okay, yeah.
All right. And then communications from the audience.
We do not have any attendees, so there's no communication.
Okay. So we can move on to our business agenda. And then we were, I suggested that we look at the member for the terms of who continues on after this year. And are there any, do we have any concerns there? We didn't know if it was a November or December meeting, so that's why we brought this up for this meeting. Thomas, you had said that you had commented to continue, not to continue after your term is up?
Yes, so my term is up with this year, and I intend not to continue on the Transportation Commission.
Comments from anyone else for upcoming? And I see my term ends December as well.
Do you intend to continue if possible, John?
I'd like to. I don't think. I'd like to find someone else to chair. Anybody could step forward to chair if they'd like. And that could also be decided in a January meeting as well, right? For chair and vice chair. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay. I don't know if there's any further discussion necessary on that then. But Thomas, we will miss your expertise on the commission.
Yeah, I must say I really enjoyed working on the Transportation Commission, and I think it's a great way to get involved into things that are going on in the city. But I recently have had a change in my job, which makes me a little bit more busy there, and also I think in that case I can focus my efforts more on cycling issues, and I can still do that even without being on the commission. So you will see and hear from me probably.
We appreciate that.
So just to help inform my thinking. So what is the process by which we can advertise the upcoming vacancy for Thomas? And then what is the process by which we could seek a reappointment for John? Given his
Nicole,
willingness.
Yeah, I'm here. So I'll jump in. So I don't know the specific process. Obviously, we lost Andrew to a different municipality, so I'm filling in at this point. But I can get that process and include it in the minutes. But unless Scott knows off the top of his head, and I'll pass it over to him. He's to my right. That's why I point.
So good evening. So we'd go back to Council Member Babcock, and she would look at who to recruit and would recommend reappointment. And she might reach out to you, John. So that's typically the process. And then if there's going to be more interviews, then she might reach out to you as well. But we'll get that ball rolling.
Okay.
All right.
Is it correct that currently there's no vacancy on the commission?
I think we have one vacancy.
Okay,
Right?
so I mean, this is what we typically always had, at least 1 or 2 vacancies. So there's always the need to advertise positions in the Transportation Commission.
Correct. Yep. And there might be applications in. I will. We can just check on our end to see if we've received any.
All right. Well, should we move on for the business agenda? And that would be the on-street parking change on Lilac Avenue. That is a holdover from our February meeting. And I guess I'll ask Scott where that goes, how that is to be decided. We had 2 residents speak on that, the one for and one against at the February meeting. Where do we go from there, Scott?
So I might bounce this back to Nicole because she was the most recent person to touch this. Nicole, if you're ready to address that.
Sure. So just by looking over the information that I've seen so far, it appears that we would go from here. We would approve kind of the limits and who the voting would go to, similar to what we did for Ardson and Marshall. And then we'd send a ballot over out to the residents and have them vote officially on the limitation of parking. I mean, it was only like 20 or 30 feet at most of a parking restriction on the backside of a no parking sign. Everybody has the drawing in front of them that was included in the packet. So at that point, it would go back for a vote of the citizens, and then we would go from there. And based on it being split before, I'm not sure if we're going to get the same tie vote moving forward, but I think at this point, we would just need to figure out who we need to send it to, if it's the block. I think in past, we've done it, by block, if there's a parking restriction on one side or the other, to be able to make that determination.
I might just bring it up to speed for somebody that aren't familiar with this, that on Lilac Avenue, it looks as to be a narrow street. There are no curb and gutters. There's no sidewalks there. Is that correct, Scott?
That's correct.
So the issue was this one resident backing out of the driveway, and you have several photos there of that, where whoever pulls off the street, you're almost pulling in someone's front lawn. Almost, there's no real shoulder there. You maybe have half on pavement, half on someone's lawn type of shoulder there. So they were looking to just back out of their driveway with some extra clearance there. And then you have several photos there showing vehicles parked there. One of them parked with a trailer parking in the no parking area with a sign. So that was, and the resident that spoke against that is the one to the right of that. And it doesn't prohibit anybody from parking in front of their home there. It just allowed the one resident to back out of their driveway with a little more clearance. The sign was properly 30 feet from the intersection. I think that was checked out.
That's correct.
So,
the no parking sign.
Right. So they were just asking for a little more room there to back out, not being encumbered after dark or as those photos showed. And so it seems like there would be some concern on who would get the vote on that issue, whether you include a block area, how that might be done. And that's where, Nicole, that's where it would go back for some discussion on city staff then?
I guess I was anticipating it would be considered for discussion here. And then we would be able to go forward and send out the ballots.
So if we discuss parking restrictions, which are, I think there's an ordinance that specifies how those are voted on. Typically, the vote goes out to everybody that lives on that street, and then I think even the adjacent block has to vote on that, if I'm not mistaken. But in this case, it's just a very limited area. We might want to just include that block of that street to vote on. So that would include all the adjacent properties on that street block. I think that would be reasonable from my point of view.
My concern is less this particular instance and in the pattern of creating very bespoke parking restrictions based on individual concerns. And I haven't been in this area recently enough to know how many other driveways may be aligned in such a way that people park at the end of your driveway in a narrow street. When we had this issue brought to us originally, I know we've had this discussion that this is not an uncommon problem for those of us who live in areas or on streets with narrow street widths. But I am a little uncomfortable with this idea that if I have a neighbor who routinely parks at the end of my driveway, I can just go to the city and have that declared a no parking zone. I think that's troubling to me.
I agree, Julie. I think that's sort of what I remember from February. I mean, it's a long time ago. But,
yeah.
Was just sort of like that, like the uncomfortability of just sort of deciding these like small stretches of street parking. I don't know. I feel the same way.
If you look at the map that is provided in the package, just in that small section of map, which it only covers 2.5 blocks, you already have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 driveways that don't have an opposite driveway. You might have the same issue. And I agree with Julie and Troy. If this is a scheme that comes to Transportation Commission every time they have a problem that somebody blocks their driveway, that might not be the most efficient way to resolve these issues, because you would have to put up no parking signs at the end of every driveway, basically.
Also looking at that driveway, it's likely that if they were to want to pave a turnaround, they're small lots, so you wouldn't be backing out. It's likely that might not even be allowed by code to pave on a small lot, pave a turnaround portion, so you weren't backing out into the driveway. Is that correct?
It depends on the lot size, honestly,
Yeah.
and planning looks at that to be able to determine that approval.
I thought it looked challenging there. Now, I don't disagree that it's going to be challenging in other areas as well. Of the lot, though, you're not really blocking another. Looks like you have a corner lot that could park on Larkspur, and you also could the one to the right at 1070 could park in front of their home as well.
The thing I note on looking at this, the other driveways are across the street from each other. So this one place is one place where it is open across the street rather than having another driveway across the street.
Yeah, but as John notes, it looks like 1107 and 1057 Daisy are both, potentially affected in a similar way as would be 1113 Larkspur. And just for the benefit of our new members, this complaint was shaped in large part because 1071 Lilac, if I recall correctly, and certainly correct my memory if I'm mistaken, was originally constructed as a single family home. It has since been turned into a rental with a large number of students who live there, each of whom has their own car, and the driveway is insufficient to accommodate that kind of traffic in and out. So it's, if I'm remembering, that one of the residents would routinely pull out, park in that spot to alleviate some of the traffic coming in and out of the driveway, and to the great and very understandable frustration of the resident of 1079. But again, it seems like we're legislating a solution to an annoying and a real problem, but one that may not persist every year. I mean, I'd be curious if anyone's checked with the resident to see if the residents of 1071 continue this problem now, or are there fewer cars by the current inhabitants? I don't know.
The other issue, yeah.
Go ahead, Thomas.
The other issue, I mean, if we say, oh, let's have this, the neighbors vote on this, and we include that block of Lilac Avenue, then there's at least 6 parties that should vote on it. But it's only in the interest of this one single party to have this parking restriction there. So, just by my guess, unless everybody else is a really nice neighbor, there's no reason that they would vote for it. So, I mean, even the vote is bound to not be approved by the rest of the neighbors. I mean, why would they? So I don't think that that's probably not a good path forward anyways.
And so I look at this in that area, I'm familiar with that area. And so, Scott, I'll ask you, because there's no curb and gutter or sidewalks in that area, that pulling off the park there could mean, if you didn't pull completely off, or where there's not really a regulated parking spot there, so you could be parking a little closer at some times and then pulling off on lawn or shoulder there, that there's times you really could crowd there. Possible?
Yeah, John, and there's a lot of restrictions in that area in general. It's pretty locked down, permit parking and so forth. A lot of times you drive down there, people will park a wheel path off the road. However, during winter, when there's windrows of snow, that would certainly narrow that. And I think someone asked, we've not heard anything from this resident since that time, and nor from the neighborhood. And I think this is a tough one to deliberate because of who should weigh in here. Because if it's renters versus a property owner, that's a tough one. I'd almost seek neighborhood the neighborhood association input as well, and we could go back to what would they recommend.
Can I ask an engineering question related to this area? It looks, I mean, from this map, I don't know if it's to scale, but if it appears that Daisy Lane is a lot narrower than Lilac. And I don't know if there are current parking restrictions there, but if we're comparing, say, 1079 Lilac to 1057 Daisy, then if Daisy has parking restrictions, or if even Lilac further east has parking restrictions that could be extended, then that's a different conversation. But if it's just a no parking for this one spot, I'll reiterate my concern about us being the body that solves individual problems.
I think they're both about the same width.
Okay.
From what I can see with my measurement of Google Earth.
Perfect. Okay. I'll take whatever precision you can offer. And are there any parking restrictions elsewhere on Lilac or on Daisy, given proximity and similarity?
There are all no parking on the south side,
Okay.
the entire length,
Okay.
and it's permit parking only. So some of those pictures, those look like possible contractors.
Yeah.
And as part of this on first blush, it won't be too hard to move the no parking a little further to the east. And that might be a quick discussion with the neighborhood association and bring this back.
I like the idea of involving the neighborhood association because they know the area and the neighbors the best. And if it involves renters especially, that might be the one group of people that has a real interest in resolving this issue. So I would support that.
As would I. I'm much more comfortable involving their input before we decide to move ahead with this.
In terms of engineering, as Scott pointed out, you could just move the no parking from here to a corner, just move it by 10 feet, and it would give you not enough room to park a vehicle there.
That was actually a proposal that someone mentioned back in February. And I thought that was a possible solution.
I think we did bring that up then. And the challenge, though, is just the input and following process.
Yeah.
If it's a safety concern or if there's not a good process moving forward, that might be the default.
Yeah.
And explain that to council that this is the best solution. By just refreshing the concern might be good to see if there's more current feedback.
Agreed.
So would this be an item to go back to the Red Cedar Community Association and then bring this up next month or at another meeting? Does that sound in agreement with everyone?
Yes, that's correct. Sorry, I was muted, John.
Do we need a motion to propose to bring this issue to the neighborhood association and have them weigh in on it with the possible proposed engineering solution, maybe?
Does that sound, Nicole? Is that
That's
necessary?
fine. And
So
we
then
can just delay
I-
the vote to the next meeting after we get the
Okay, we could
additional
do that, yeah.
information.
All right, Thomas, do you have a motion?
Well, if we just, do we need to vote on moving it back to the next meeting? After involving the neighborhood association?
I think you can just delay and have it be brought back.
Okay.
Just as a
All right, this will be an agenda item for November.
Correct.
But then we have to figure out who will contact the neighborhood association, right?
Cole, where does that go?
It's a great question.
staff will take that on.
Okay. Thank you, mysterious staff.
Yes.
I know. Thanks, Nicole.
You're welcome.
And also sorry.
No, you're fine. This will be good. It's great.
I think I would speak for myself when saying I'm much more comfortable with that process than I am with deciding to just impose a new no restriction.
And would this be one also to note that this would be brought up, that they would know this would be brought up in our next meeting then?
Yes. Yep,
For
absolutely.
the neighborhood association for some input.
Perfect.
All right, are we ready to move on to our next item?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
which is the the ballots received from the Ardson Road and Marshall Street on-street parking change that was from last month's meeting. And
Correct.
everybody's got a copy of that, right? I'm
Yes.
looking for mine. And so we're to look at the vote tallies here, and we can move forward to that to go ahead with our parking restriction.
Yes.
And Scott, does the city take this on then for to go ahead then with no parking signs?
So from here, there would have to be a TCO, and I'll let Nicole talk this because Nicole.
All right.
So yeah, we would follow the neighborhood parking guidelines, and we'd go from here and implement a TCO based on the votes and bring it to council. Is my understanding, unless that's incorrect, Scott.
Yep, that's it. So once the council approves the TCO, there'd be a staff memo. From here, if there's any comment or endorsement or any concerns with this process, I think we're.
Just a point of clarification. If I thought we were going to also allow them to weigh in on which side of the street they wanted restricted. No.
And the vote did do that, did it
Oh.
not?
Yes, there are some votes for both.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I just didn't see the column. I just saw the total numbers. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
And we did not get votes on. We did not get votes for a side on every ballot.
Okay.
So
Okay, that's why the
kind of
numbers
if
were.
they're-
Yeah.
If
I'm
they
seeing it
voted
now.
yes, sometimes they said both, or they said none, or
Okay.
they didn't even answer that portion of it.
Okay. So really, there's nothing else you need from us?
I think it would just be, would it be a motion to be able to carry this forward to develop a TCO to move to council with your recommendation?
Yeah, I think there would be it'd be good to endorse this voting and possibly, just to wrap up this process.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'll move to accept the votes from the neighborhood regarding the parking restrictions in these two streets, and to move this along to create a TLC and bring it to council.
All right, we have a motion from Thomas. Do we have a second?
I second.
Do we need any further discussion on this? We can. All right, so all in favor of moving this forward to council, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign? All right, thank you. We'll move that on. And that, I'm looking now for my agenda here. Are we okay? Then we're all set there. We can go on to committee reports. And Nicole, who do we have anybody from for committee reports from staff?
No, I will just give a quick overview of some of the projects that we are working on for the next and upcoming fiscal year. Obviously, I think as was mentioned last meeting, a few of our projects did get delayed that were planned for the 2020 fiscal year, including the East Glen Karen Neighborhood Improvements Project and the Kedzie Sunrise and Collingwood Project. So those got delayed, and we are getting those reset to be able to bid out over the summer, or I'm sorry, over the winter, and construction next spring and summer. With the Collingwood, this would include some bike lanes from Grand River to Albert. And we're also going to add another section of Collingwood to this project that would go from Ann Street all the way up to Bircham. Another section that we're doing, or another street that we're doing, is Abbott from Saginaw to Lake Lansing. This is an MDOT LAP funded project that we are also getting TAP funding for, to include bike lanes on this project as well. You guys know that because you brought that before you last month. More projects that we are working on is repaving of various streets throughout the city. Gainsborough, Blanchette, Charles, Division, Roseland, Oakwood, and Maplewood. Those are our fiscal year 21 local street projects. We're also working on doing some water main projects on King and Berkshire, Melrose, and King, Berkshire, Melrose, and possibly Stoddard, and some valve replacements on Bircham. So there's going to be a lot of work being completed in this upcoming year. And, you know, with any of those, we are looking at, you know, what we can do to help mitigate traffic through these areas when we're doing construction. And obviously with the some of the projects, we were able to incorporate bike lanes and such with those as well. Any specific questions on projects that you've heard about or that are upcoming?
Yeah, can I ask a question for the Collingwood Drive project? That currently has 2 travel lanes, but there's also turn lanes. So in order to include bike lanes, do you remove one of the car lanes? Or how do you accomplish that?
I believe that's how we are setting that up at this point. And we can go ahead and you know, bring that before you guys too, to be able to see that. And Scott's going to weigh in on that.
If you don't mind. So we did do a study on that, that the traffic patterns would support removing a lane and adding the bike lanes.
Sounds good.
One more project I hadn't mentioned yet was the Albert Avenue extension. This is a project that's going to start sooner than that, and it's going to extend Albert Avenue from Evergreen all the way to Valley Court. So it will be a continuation of Albert, you know, and obtain some continuity between downtown and the Valley Park or Valley Court Park. So that's a very exciting project for us, not necessarily for the roadway. The roadway is exciting and there's bike lanes on that one as well, but to be able to move forward with a lot of the utilities we've been postponing over the past probably 11 plus years. So these will be a connectivity up to the neighborhood to the north. So with that, we are also remove a section of the roadway that is of Evergreen from Albert to Valley Court, and it would be a pedestrian corridor at that point. So that's one that will come into construction over the winter. So we'll see that moving along sooner than later.
And that's a major project because it actually is a completely new roadway, basically, right?
Yep, absolutely. And we are also still working with the developer for the Abbott and the Graduate to install the new signal at Abbott and Albert.
And Nicole, what is the status of this Coleman, extension?
Coleman Road extension is open.
Oh, it's open now? Okay.
It's open, yes.
Okay.
They had a ribbon cutting ceremony on the last week on the 21st.
Mhm.
So it is open. There is some additional work to be done with the installation of some solar streetlights and maybe some speed limit signs I might have heard about recently.
But we can drive through that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, they were doing actually last week, they were doing paving on that while it was raining.
Oh, great.
So they, I think, finished last week. I was watching it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it is open and ready to go.
Okay, good to know that.
Okay.
And you mentioned this new signal at Abbott and Albert?
Yes.
Because right now we don't have a pedestrian crossing signal in the southwest corner.
Correct. And that is something that we are working on with the developer to get that moving in the direction. So either way, even if we aren't able to get the signal in the ground as soon as we would like, they will need to come up with a solution for that because it's not been there for a little bit and it is causing some concerns.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
The Coleman Road was a question. Joel, did you bring that up on? Who had a question on the Northern Trail?
Yeah, that was me. And that was a question that came in from Art Stosky, who's looking at that. Yeah, and a question about the trail crossing Coleman Road. It isn't up to the standards of the other road crossings of on that trail, and that things have changed there quite a bit since the crossing first was put in there, including last week. You know, obviously you're going to be getting a lot more traffic on Coleman Road, and so concerns about having that crossing appropriately marked.
So that section of Coleman Road is under the jurisdiction of Clinton County Road Commission. We have received some additional communications in regards to that crossing. I know Scott has communicated some with the emails that we've received, and we will pass these concerns on to the Road Commission. But Scott, if you want to add anything else.
Yep. So Clinton County Road Commission they're a good partner with us regionally. They're aware of the site distance concerns, specifically in your northbound looking towards the west of those pine trees. There was also another concern about possibly putting some type of warning signal. At this point, that's not in the plans of Clinton County, but the big one is freeing up the site distance, doing some trimming, and do some more advanced warning signs. And they are aware of this, and they'll continue to work on this.
Yeah, I think currently the sidewalk signs are partly covered by this pine tree, so it's probably good if that would be trimmed.
Any other questions?
It was expressed to me too. This was brought in by bicyclists. The way the bicyclists in this neighborhood get together, but that area to the north has a lot of young children in it too, and so that crossing goes down to the soccer fields, the parks to the south there. So something to be considered.
No, and those concerns have been brought up, and also our Parks and Rec, our team are involved with this as well about signage. How can we improve it? So it's going to take a while to figure out what the strategy is, but Clinton County is aware of it. The challenge here is it's not our right of way. So Clinton County owns the road in that area, and they're aware of our concerns, and they know that we would invest on what we can do with our trail, and they're willing to look at what they can do with the road to improve the crossing.
All right. Anything else? We can move on to, if we have reports from chair and board members. Do we have any reports? We can go on to some concerns. I don't have anything to report on.
I have one. This was brought to me by a neighbor who has concerns that, well, they're potentially temporary, unknowingly perhaps permanent, about the drive-through traffic patterns around the Starbucks on Grand River. And Nicole is laughing, and I'm not sure why, but because the restaurant is closed, the drive-through is the only way to access Starbucks. And according to this concerned neighbor, it routinely overflows back onto Grand River and creates what he is a safety concern. So
I'm smiling just because every time I drive by there and want a coffee, the line is way too long for me.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But it's not the first time I've heard that there's concerns with this, and that's something that we can bring up to planning and building department.
Yeah. It also,
Please.
someone mentioned to me, makes it impossible to access the Tropical Smoothie Cafe parking lot. So I do as I'm requested. I report the concerns of the people.
So is the traffic backing up onto Grand River or onto Stoddard Avenue?
I think probably both, but mostly Stoddard that I've seen. But I'm sure at times it goes all the way.
Right. So if Stoddard fills up, right, if Stoddard South and that right left-hand lane fills up, then it starts to, the concern that was raised with me is that it starts to fill out onto Grand River. And so then that the sidewalk side of the westbound lanes then are blocked by people waiting.
And that Starbucks is not open
Right.
or walk-in traffic. Is that what you said?
Right. I think that, I mean, that's obviously a contributing factor.
Okay.
So
So
you
that even if
enter
people-
from Stoddard and exit to Grand River to go through there?
Yeah, to do the drive-through, yes.
Okay.
But I think you can imagine then, I'm going to pull up a map just so I can be less theoretical in my directions here. But right, so you know, they line up in the east side of northbound Stoddard, right, to access, yeah. And so sometimes it'll back up along the northern lane of westbound Grand River.
So typically when a drive-through is put in, there's some requirements as to the number of cars that can be waiting in line. And I'm guessing that all of those are met with Starbucks. It's just the problem that they are too popular, I guess.
Well, and that it's closed, right, for walk-in traffic. So
right.
that's
the only way you can get your coffee, I guess.
Right.
Yeah,
So maybe
I would
people that
agree,
would walk-
Thomas. Go ahead, Thomas. What?
Maybe people that would walk otherwise, now they get into their car and drive into the drive-through just because they need Starbucks coffee.
Yep.
You know, is it happening in certain times, or is it spread over the day?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Yeah. Yeah,
Seems
it's not
random.
easy solution, you know, because
Right.
given the situation now, you know, it's not easy at all for anybody.
Correct.
Hopefully it's
Correct.
temporary, right? And we get
Right.
a vaccine, then they will open the Starbucks as soon as possible.
Right.
Yep.
Others, Thomas, you want to bring up your concern about bulk leaf pickup?
Yeah, I have had this issue already before. The reason I'm bringing it up now is it just happened. So I was riding my bike on Alton Road on Sunday, and some neighbor there, they put all their yard waste, and not just leaves, also grass clippings, a huge pile right in the middle of the bike lane. And I always thought it was a problem to put the yard waste into the street, not only on the bike lane, but also in the residential streets. I know that this is common practice, like everybody is doing this. But if you look at what the city of East Lansing tells homeowners to do, is it says bring the yard waste to the curb and do not put it in the street or in the right of way. And I don't know. You know, one could go and start writing tickets. I'm not sure that would be the best solution, but maybe there's a way we can advertise more that please do not block the street, not the bike. Then the problem I have is this: if I ride my bike, or anybody, and when it's dark out, especially in the residential streets, you come around a corner, you don't expect there to be a huge pile of leaves that you don't see because it's no reflectors, no bright colors. Sometimes there's even branches and sticks in there. It's really nasty if you hit that with your bike. For pedestrians, it's a problem because they don't see where the curb is, so you can easily fall when you want to cross the street where the leaves are. So I think there's a number of issues, and then not the least to mention is the problem with the storm drains, which that's something I don't understand, is that people don't think about that. You know, one strong rain, you have all these leaves in your storm drains, and it clogs up the drainage, and then you have a flood in your street. That's not so nice either. But I don't know what a good way is to bring out this message. Maybe we could put this on, maybe there's these water bills where we have messaging possibilities. We could put it there.
I was thinking the same thing.
In the dialogue and say, please do not put this stuff in the street, you know.
You know, Thomas, I drove by that same pile today, and the thing that kills me, there was sufficient greenbelt for those leaves to be there. That necessarily need to be in the bike lane. It looks like a landscaper did that. And if we do need to have pace go around and nudge people, if we see something sitting out there for too long, there could be some enforcement and communication, because not messaging doesn't always reach people.
That's a good point. You said it probably is a landscaper, because the fact that there were grass clippings as well indicates that it actually was a landscaper. Maybe it's good to contact those businesses and say, hey, you really can't do that. To be frank, I was tempted to come back with the rake and put all this trash into the roadway, just to make a point, but I don't think that would be legal either.
So I see that on my daily commute back through the neighborhoods. Everybody's out in the street, and it's not a problem biking early in the morning. I'd also bike at the Grand River bike lane, and it's times where that lane is completely full of leaves. But Scott, I would guess that your city crews, now on Harrison Road where I live, they come through with a vacuum. But back in the neighborhoods where they were using front end loaders, I gotta think it's a help for the crews to have that right out on the pavement, and they're not raking or dealing with the lawn. I gotta think that the crews would prefer it in the street, would they not?
They would, and the challenge here, though, is the major streets, it's a bigger hazard. I see where the bike lanes are on the major streets obstructing that. That's a big issue. And they use a vac system on the major streets. The loaders and things are used on the locals where they can, where there's typically more density of that, more leaves and more trees, frankly. But if you were to pick a battle, I would say keeping the bike lanes clear for one. That'd be a great message to focus on and educating people on.
Yeah, and I would agree that that would be probably a good starting point. Grand River, by the way, I had the same issue on Grand River. And since Grand River is 35 miles per hour, it's very dicey. You have to move into the travel lane, or you risk to actually fall because there are so many leaves in the bike lane there in some spots.
Well, good comments, Thomas. I encounter that daily as well. But to solve that problem might be easier if you have a landscaper violating that. But individual houses happy to get it off their lawn, apparently.
So, Scott, could the city contact Pace to keep an eye out on the bike lanes, especially maybe, and then also contact landscaping businesses in the area? Would that be a possibility?
Yeah, so we forwarded your email on to Chief Johnson and Deputy Chief Gonzalez, so they're aware, and we'll give them feedback from this meeting about that. So we can definitely share that. And we have the same problem with snow removal, where private contractors will push snow from private lots into the street and create a ramp for vehicles. So this is, there's similar firms, so it's not unreasonable to poke people and go, hey, please don't dump it in the street. And I think to John's point, our crews definitely like it when the leaves are on the street, but the ordinance says to keep them off the street as much as possible. In some places, you just don't have enough green belt to do that. And that's where there's some give and take.
I've seen them come through here where we don't have a curb, and they suck it right up from the edge of your lawn, if it's not in the street. So from my point of view, there isn't really a reason to put it in the street. And I think where you have a curb and gutter, then you actually don't want it there because of the drainage issues.
Yeah. All right, Thomas, from that point where there's a narrow green belt, like 18 inches, where you have a sidewalk green belt, that's where the everything gets buried in the leaves. That's the tough one because we can't bury the sidewalk in leaves.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, from like a messaging standpoint, I don't know that like making the bike lane argument is like super compelling to most people. That would be my thought as far as messaging goes.
Well, I mean, in the ordinance, it says you can't put it in the street, and the bike lane is part of the street. So I think in terms of the messaging, you could tell people it's against the ordinance, and they could get a ticket for it. You don't have to mention bike lanes.
I think there would be sympathy in East Lansing for keeping the bike lanes clear. And if you were to honestly show a cyclist going down the road and seeing it blocked by a giant pile, that might cause people to think social media and so forth. And some people aren't going to pay attention regardless.
Well, that's a good comment, Thomas, because I encounter that as well, and I'm sure other cyclists. So maybe just getting that out there, and I'm sure the PACE officers, if we were to call in an address, Scott, it's likely they would attend to that, wouldn't they?
Yes. So
we could call out a certain resident or whoever put the pile there. They would attend to that.
Yeah, maybe that's a possibility for the really egregious cases, like the one on Alton was a pretty big pile, I thought.
Yeah, I think I'd call that in to Pace then, and they'd pay him a visit. We do the same thing after a football Saturday when a yard is pretty trashed. You can call in and give an address, and they'll come out and address the situation at least. Any other concerns that we need to address for the board member concerns and comments? And with that, we could. Nicole, do you have a date for a November meeting? I don't have a calendar in front of me here. I didn't. Do we want to schedule a November meeting?
Yes, I think that would be a very good thing to do. The next meeting would be held on November 16th per our normal schedule. With the conflict of other live meetings being held at the same time, you've heard in past, this is why we have this meeting on the random 27th of October, is because it conflicted. We can only have one Zoom city meeting at a time, and we need time to switch over. Commission on the Environment also meets, and we'll be having a November meeting on the 16th. So there's a couple options we could do here. One would be we could start a little earlier. We could start at 5. We could start at 5:30. We just need to have, a window of time in between our meeting and the Commission on the Environment meeting so they can switch the Zoom over to that meeting. So that's at least a half an hour. Emily can correct me if I'm wrong, to be able to make that switch. So this would be also a communication to Commission on the Environment, and they might have to start a little later to be able to give us time. So we would just have a hard end time if we did it that way.
Or how does everyone feel for the time? Can we move that in November? Can we move that earlier? Are we going to have some attendance issues here?
Would be okay with it at 5 o'clock or 5:30.
What would our end time have to be, Nicole, for a hard end, when you mentioned?
With currently the Commission on the Environment meets at 6:30, but if they could move theirs to 7, then we could end by 6:30, but it would be contingent upon them being able to push their meeting back. So if we started at 5 and we had a good hour in, which is about where we're at right now, we could end by 6. They could start at 6:30 if they weren't able to change their meeting back. Or we would then at that point, if we still started at 5, we would have an additional half an hour if they were able to move their meeting back. Or we start at 5:30 and go through the chain of events again.
All right, how about some comments on the time change? Would 5 o'clock work? That actually works for me in November. I can handle that time change.
Yeah, that's fine. I think 5.
That's fine for me too.
Yeah, if you can send this invitation in advance, so we can put it in a calendar, right? So this way you don't book anything else.
Yeah, I could probably book that now, and then it would be replaced with, the Zoom meeting.
Yep, that's fine.
Because that can't go out until the day of, because you have to set the agenda and everything prior to
Sure.
that, so.
We at MSU, we have thousands of meetings at the same time. But the city has a rule, you cannot, because the same people are participating with different commissions.
It's about our Zoom account.
Oh, really? No. But in our case, we have, too many meetings, I think. Because we have MSU account, right? So, okay.
Well, I think it's a combination of Zoom and our streaming service.
Yes.
And yeah, so because we have to stream live and record it and put it, up on our website. So that combination of things can only happen for one meeting at a time.
Okay.
Okay, so Nicole, we can leave it that you'll check for us then for a 5 p.m. start then on November 16th.
Yes, 5 p.m. on November 16th.
All right.
And this week there is this Open Meetings Act training is it on Thursday?
Oh, thank you, Thomas, for bringing that up. Yes. Do you want to comment, Nicole? That is, that's this Thursday. Is that correct?
That is this Thursday from, is it 7 to 8:30, I believe? And it's a training that will be held by our new city attorney, and it will go over the Open Meetings Act requirements, especially now during this age of Zoom and digital meetings, and it will
Yep.
also go over the FOIA process.
So
That's
Nicole, are
something-
we going to get an invitation for that too?
Yeah.
With the link?
I
The
can
link
answer
for the
that. So I'll be sending out invitations probably around noon on Thursday,
Okay.
but I'll be sending out a reminder Thursday morning.
Okay.
Thank you, Emily.
And there was one email already. That's why I know it.
Yep.
Yep.
You know, there are too many meetings with this Zoom. You know, it's really, I don't know how people are dealing with it, but it's you know, I'm working till midnight. You know, and you know, you finish one meeting, you go, there is no break in between the meetings. So I don't know, you guys feel the same.
I think we're all feeling your pain.
Yeah, it is.
Excitement.
So Nicole, thank you for leading us tonight, but I'm going to ask then for the November meeting, would usually the draft of the agenda is sent to me for any additions or anything. Can we have members chime in at some point to add to the agenda? Because then I don't know if we're all seeing that ahead of the meeting, or to get an item on the agenda. Would that be? What would be a way to announce that?
I can send you a draft of the agenda that we have, and if you want to send it around to the commission members and get any things to be added to the agenda, or just send me items to put on the agenda.
Okay.
Is it correct? Maybe we learn differently on Thursday, but in principle, we could also add agenda items at the beginning of the meeting before we approve the agenda. Is it correct?
Correct. I believe that is correct. I'll say it.
I mean,
that way.
it's not the best way to do it, because then there's no, you know, if the public wants to chime in on something, they wouldn't know about it because it was just added. But technically, I think that's a possibility too.
No, I understood they were trying to squash that option. Is that not correct? That they wanted because just as you said, Thomas, the public isn't getting a chance to be part of that. Then, if we add that at the beginning of the meeting.
Yeah, I think the process would be to get that agenda item on there as soon as possible so it can be publicly advertised to the public, you know, the Friday before the meeting. Or
So
at least
oftentimes-
18 hours ahead of the meeting.
Yeah, oftentimes if we had something that was coming up, we would discuss it at, like, if we had something that we know about, we would discuss it at this meeting and say, hey, you know, we should add that on the next agenda.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right. Thank you, everyone. Are we set to adjourn until November 16th?
I'll move to adjourn the meeting.
All right.
Second.
All right. All right.
Okay. Bye, guys.
We have to vote, Syed.
Oh, we need to still vote? Okay.
Yes.
I didn't know if we're voting on adjourning. All right.
Okay, sure,
Yes.
sure.
We set to adjourn. Everyone in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Bye.
All right. Adjourn
I'm
until-
forgetting it, okay?
Okay.
Someone
Yeah,
says
say-
So-